Good afternoon to all the We Work Well attendees. Welcome to our afternoon panel. We have a great bunch for you. I hope everybody had wonderful meetings this morning. I had one myself and it was great actually. I mean, I felt like it was for Mineral Air, Marianne, and I felt like she could spray me, right through the screen. Really good. Didn't get the quite effect, but you know what I mean. It was fun. Not like being in person, and we can't wait until we are again in person this fall, but for now, I think this is working pretty well. So again, I want to get to our topics. We are working at our desks around the country, and we're happy to welcome Suzanne Holbrook, Senior Corporate Director of SPA for Marriott, Patrick Huey, Corporate Spa Director for Montage, Daniel Poulin, Director of Spa and Fitness for North and Central America for Accor, and Allison Langenderfer, the founder and president of SPAVIA, which has many locations, 50. So we are going to hear from all of these folks. In order for you all to know how to work your screen, you see a chat. I think at the bottom right, if there's an enabled chat, you'll want to click that button. And when you do, to the right of your screen, a panel will open up and it will have chat, Q&A, polls, and handouts across the top. The Q&A is where I'd like you to put questions to our panelists, not in the chat. We generally, like you are all now, chiming in on chat to say hello, which is great. But Q&A, specific questions for the panel, please put those in the Q&A box, so we will look there. And we are going to start off with a poll. As we are still waiting for people to log in, I'm going to launch the first poll. It's an informal poll, and I just wanted to kind of get a sense of where you all are in this reopening process. So, question 1, which you'll see at the top. Do you see it? Hopefully you do. Yes. As business ramps up again, is your biggest concern A, cash flow, B, demand for products and services, C, maintaining your company culture, or D, communications and relationships with staff? And I'm sure maybe these are all concerns, but I'd like to hear from our attendees which, if any, are your biggest concerns. And I'll leave that open for about 10 or 15 seconds as we get everybody in there. Great, I see the voting. I love this. We've all been on Zoom quite a lot in the last few weeks. I had always had it, but I never lived on it for hours a day like I have since we've been inside. This program we are on is called Big Marker, and it's a little different and it has more bells and whistles than Zoom, but we're not as familiar with it. But we're getting there. So I'm going to close the poll in a moment. We have, most people have voted, I think. Okay, thank you for that. So we are going to split up our discussion into chunks, and our first chunk, we'd like to focus on employees. And the reason is that we can't start our businesses up without employees, whether on the spa side or on the resource partner side. We need people to come back to work. And the main issues around that appear to be making sure that employees feel safe and secure. All of us on this call are leaders, and we are probably the first one out of the house, and we don't walk around in fear. We're not that kind of person, but our employees may be, and we need to be sensitive to that and really kind of ramp up the empathy quotient in ourselves. We may need to retrain. I mean, it's been 10 or 11 weeks in some cases that we've been closed. So there's a sort of a refresher aspect, and then also you're going to have new protocols around cleaning and sanitizing that you're going to need to train your staff on. And then I also want to chat on our role in this. What is your responsibility as the leader in making expectations clear? So this is plenty to get us started. And I'm going to jump first to Allison because Allison has the most spas open, a SPAVIA, and she'll tell us, I think 20 or 23 of her spas have already opened around the US. So Allison, could you please jump in and tell us how it's been working and how have you gotten that employee engagement the way that you'd like it?
Of course, thank you. And thanks again for having me. You know, for us, it's been, I'm sure for all of us, it's been quite the journey. We ended up with a 60-page cleaning protocol document that really went every minute detail of the operations of SPAVIA. And I think, it's interesting. I want to step back for a second, because when I think about a team or I think about employees, much like our guests, we've all had a journey. And every single one of us this morning had a different journey. Some are good, some are bad, some are hectic. We're trying to get on this webinar. And I think that when we understand that we're just people, strip away our titles, we are human beings that need connection. And so with this 60-page document, really it was then, how do we bring the teams together? So there's a lot of preparation. As each state was opening up, Marty and I would meet with them, talk about what their concerns that were, what their regulations were, what was a guideline, what was a mandate, and really helping them understand, now we have to take it to the team. So when we go back to this journey and we think, how do we do this? You have employees, again, that what you had said was empathy. You have employees that maybe, and team members that just have never touched anybody. They've been very secluded. So how do you bring them back in? We've done a lot of role playing, very important for leadership, the owners, their leads to be present. And then again, walking through, everybody gets a chance. You're the guest, you're walking in, that team member, how do you greet? How do you create that virtual hug with your eyes and a mask on, right? So tone of your voice.
May I interrupt you? How did you do that? Some brands are coming up with sort of a virtual greeting, or something. I mean, has SPAVIA come up with something along those lines?
So at SPAVIA, the way, again, it's your tone of your voice, that smile in your eyes. I mean, even with a mask, you can tell when somebody is smiling. We did incorporate in Mexico, where we visit often, their entire team puts their hand over their heart and just sort of gives that little bit of a bow. And so we've really worked hard to incorporate some of those gestures, because again, you want to hug and you want to touch and you want to have that conversation and you can't, but that is such a great way to put your hand over your heart and really embrace. A lot of resorts do that now, but I think it's just that connection that you can provide in a very, very subtle way. So
let me ask you this. Did you have any locations where you had trouble getting employees to come back, like they were, I'm imagining that in most places, they won't all want to, and that's okay. We probably don't need them all first day. So how has that been for SPAVIA?
So at SPAVIA, it depends on the mandate. And really, for example, in Colorado, to begin with, we couldn't have more than 10 people in the entire spa. So we basically said to the teams, who would like to come back? And, there were different levels of anxiety. So those that were very willing and wanting to come back, the leads, certainly with the leadership, we needed people to come in that really could help people understand and know that everything's okay. Overall, the first couple of days, there was, nerves. Overwhelmingly, our sanitation, the protocols that we had put in place, all the planning that we as a national team had put together, they were blown away. Like, they couldn't believe that much thought was put into what we had done. And I think
a 62-page document is not a small thing. So
yeah, no, it was 60. I'm not going to shortchange but I think that at the end of the day, your teams need to feel comfortable. They need to know that you care about their, and we're in that business anyway, but they need to hear it. They need to see it. They need to see the marketing materials and all the pieces that go together. And then again, that role playing of them understanding and getting that comfortability before a guest even walks into the spa.
Right.
So
that's good.
And then more importantly,
go ahead.
Oh, the last piece of it is, having you be present and having our owners be present, the leads be present, and communication, making sure every single day, how are you? How are you feeling? We actually put together an intranet just for our teams so that they can fill their buckets back up at the end of the day, right? So they can go, they can see all the different resources that we've provided to them, because they're having people, we had right out of the gate, I think it was our Georgia location, very first guest came in, was on the table and just burst into tears. And we all just took a big kind of that gasp of, wow, you know, these people need us so much, and there's so much emotion. We're seeing so many levels of emotion, but if we can just bring that kindness and care and empathy, you know, to our guests, but to our teams, that's how we're going to get through this together. That's how we'll emerge stronger as an industry, is just continuing the love and care that we provide to our guests and our team members.
Well, that's a great point that you make, and I think we're going to experience that in our spas, because people have been sequestered, many of them alone in their homes, and there has been no human touch. And so the first clients that come out, this is not the first I've heard of that, them being emotional. And as you said, for employees too, many have not left their house. Now, Suzanne, I'm going to jump to, and I want to let everyone know that Suzanne is here with us live. Her image on my screen is frozen, but she's actually here. So Suzanne, what can you tell us about how Marriott's been preparing for the employees to return?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa. Yeah, I think it's challenging because so many of us are furloughed, and many of even the corporate leaders are furloughed. But, I've been extremely blessed and being part of the an iSpa collaboration with Patrick and Daniel, and learned a great deal from that. We don't only contribute, also learn a lot. And I think my mantra has always been, and I learned this many years ago, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And that's always really stayed with me. And I think, when it comes to our teams, it has to be a very structured training program for our company. That's how we want to move forward. So we laid out a training program, depending on the size of your spa. We have about 175 spas in the Americas. So, you range anywhere from 4 rooms to 50 rooms, so it's all very different. 3 weeks out, ensure that your spa director, is brought back on. And we know that not all our spa directors are coming back on board.
3 weeks, that was your target?
I'd like longer. I'd take longer if we possibly can. Yeah. But minimum 3 weeks, minimum 3 weeks if we can, because we are hearing out there a lot of supervisors are being brought back. And I'm not talking about just Marriott, I'm talking about outside of the brand as well. And the spa directors are being left, which is a concern. And then at 2 weeks, the spa director has to go in and order the PPE and make sure all the processes are in place. At 2 weeks, you bring on maybe your supervisors or other leadership or your trainers. You train the trainer. You start to train the trainer. And then a week out, and you don't even, depending on the size of the spa, 4 days to a week out, you bring the team back in. The first day is orientation. You have spa orientation. You have social distancing. You get a large meeting room. You space everyone out. And you allow your voice to have a team, your team to have a voice. I think everyone's stuck at home. They're frightened for their careers. They're frightened for their livelihoods. They're frightened with everything that's going on in the world right now. So really allow them to let it out. You are now going to be the counselor as such. You need to hear it. We need to hear. And then have them bring in flip charts to that room and have them really involved in the work that's going to affect them moving forward. So allow them to tell you what they think it should look like. You may not be able to put everything in place. You've already got your processes in place because we've already built out those processes. You look at the iSpa process, the standards that's sent out. There's everything in there that you need. Every single thing is in there that you need. And then you allow your team to really be part of that process and really listen to them. And I saw a question come up from Laura saying, what about employees that don't want to come back? Well, I don't think we should force anyone to come back if they don't want to. Do we really want someone to come back and work with a guest if they don't want to be there? So I think that's a whole different situation. But the first day, you allow them to come in, you do orientation with them, you allow them to have a voice. That afternoon, you start training on the sanitation processes and all the cleaning processes, everything they need to do. Same as the next day, have another full day. I know GMs are going to complain about their payroll. But the next day, you allow them to take them through training. Every department's individual. And then maybe the third or fourth day, you actually do role playing. So you will invite other people from the hotel. Maybe it's your sales team, maybe it's your GM, maybe it's, you know, other managers or employees if they're working, and do a mock, we call it mock trials in our company. And you take them through the process, from the reservation process to the check-in process, and every single employee has to go through that. So they really don't just talk about it in theory, they're actually practicing in theory. So it's really like Allison said about the role playing. You know, they are actually role playing in real life, you know, with real life guests, and them employees have to act like real life guests. And then once they're comfortable, once we really feel that they're ready to go, then we open up the spa. And this is the recommendations we're sending out, because I think, you know, for our guests, we make a promise to our guests, and we have to ensure that our employees are built into that process. They really buy into that process, but they don't get a week into it and say, you know, I don't really want to wear my mask right now. There has to be an accountability piece to that, you know, and I know me and Patrick talk about that. There really has to be an accountability of someone that says, you know, I'm not really going to uphold the standards. So how do you deal with that? So it's really a matter of really doing it live, ensuring they sign off at the end of their training, they sign off on the standards, the promise to our guests that they're going to upkeep that goes into their employee file. So we know we have that on hand if we ever have to go back to an employee and say, you know, we really said that you're not doing what we promised to our guests. So, you know, and again, I think it's like Allison said, it's really about listening. It's really listening with your heart, and really understanding what they're going through and the fears that they have, and really being able to empathize and work forward on how we really protect our employees and our guests.
Well, thank you for laying out that process. That sounds very detailed and great. And as you said, if you have the time, I mean, you bring up a good point in that about non-compliance. I mean, we're hearing that already in Asia, that they're starting to get comfortable and take their masks off. And I know that Lucy and Monica had an experience like that closer to home very recently. So we do have to be alert for that. We do have another question around offering refresher training for emotional release. And I'm going to throw this over to Daniel or Patrick. We've let the ladies go first. And let's talk a little bit about what are we doing beyond sort of the rote training of here's how we're going to do things around getting to the emotional underlying issues.
I can go. Go ahead, Patrick.
Sure, go ahead, Daniel. You're it,
Daniel. So great to be here with all you guys and people on the call. So, you know, when this started, we all heard about we're all in this together. And when you lead a team, often it is associated to being on the same boat. But then we also heard the analogy where actually we are not on the same boat, we're on the same storm, but on different boats, right?
I love
and
that.
I love analogies because what it tells me as a leader is that not only my guests, but also my employees have their own boat, and their boat is made of their fear, their mental wellness at the moment, their physical fitness, the way that they approach everything in life. So when I arrive with my boat back to work, how do I take care of the people's boat and making sure that they have actually the structure and the resilience to actually go forward and do what we ask them to do, right? It's all about embarking them all into this journey so we can go through the storm, right? So this is I feel something that we can focus on as leaders. And then you can also see the boat of the guests, because the guests are going to come to our spas and they have fears, but if they have made the decision to come to your spa, there's a reason why they are there, and they're ready to spend money in order to feel better. And we need to make sure that we do this in a safe way. And we've heard stories and we've seen videos on social media where people refuse to follow the guidelines that we have put in place. And then how do we address this, knowing that the person who's maybe so fearful and set in their own way is having a hard time coming to a space that we want to protect for the other employees and for the other guests that are there. So that's something that I feel needs to be addressed with the employees as they come back, because there's a lot of emotions being brought up with them on their boat.
Well, for sure. And the role that we have as leaders is to make sure our employees feel that we have their safety as number one. And that's been sort of the corporate speak we've heard all along, that we as leaders need to make our staff feel your safety and security is our number one priority. And after we do that, then we can progress to the guests. Patrick, let me jump to you. What would you like to add to this?
Sure, I would just say that I think the umbrella of all of this that needs to be part of employee engagement or associate engagement and leadership is that, and we said this in the very beginning when the group I worked with Suzanne, when we met, was that we all sink or swim together. Mm. And I think that has to be really imparted to our therapists, our junior leaders in our spas, our resource partners, that if one of us fails spectacularly, it impacts all of our businesses. And I think we have to bear that in mind as we're looking at how do we take care of our associates when they come back. I think it's also really important to, at Montage, we made a decision to pick people who had that skill set, that they were flexible and could work in more than one capacity.
Love that word.
Because if you have a person who can only really be, I can only be an attendant, I can only be a receptionist, I can only be a therapist, I can only be whatever my job function is, they're probably not going to do great in an opening situation like this, where we need people who can be flexible and who can, for a lack of a better word or phrase, go with the flow to a certain degree. Because one day it may be all hands on deck in the fitness center if something's happening there. So I think identifying the right person, and Laura, it goes back to your question. I think it's really understanding the strengths of your employees and understanding who is that person who can work in this environment and have that flexibility to be comfortable in that environment. And I would say lastly, that we have to remember that as leaders, I'll use myself as an example, I've been living with these guidelines and these standards for 2 months now. And I know them, I understand them, I know where they came from, I understand why we've done certain things. And employees coming back may not have that visibility. They may be getting handed a 60-page manual and being asked to absorb that in a day or two. So I think we all have to up our empathy genes and understand that it's going to be a lot for them to actually absorb from day one. And then we're saying, turn that around. And I mean, a week is fast for some companies. Sometimes we're getting go signals in 3 or 4 days. Mm-hmm. So just to remember that they're going to be absorbing a lot of information that you've been sitting with as the leader for months, they'll be absorbing that in a matter of days. And so that's going to be something to take into account and to be flexible with them. If they have a great idea, you have to incorporate it because they're going to see it from a totally different perspective than what we as the leaders have been sitting in an office for a month or 2 months creating these documents for them to adhere to.
That's very true. Well said, Patrick. I mean, we have been given a lot of fear from the media and the stories, and now this week even more drama in our nation. And so we have to be empathic about that. Some of us have been out and about during this whole virus. I go to the market quite frequently. I wear my mask, I use my sanitizer, but I know that many people have not, and that first century now is a little scary. And what I have found working with my consulting clients is that we've been having sort of regular weekly Zoom calls like this, or video calls with the staff to talk about these issues, because they have this idea, I'm going to come back to work and it's going to be like it was. And then when they start to realize, oh, wait, it's not going to be quite like that, right? I'm going to have to wear a mask, and there's going to be steps, and it's going to be slower. And you can see them sort of start to understand, oh, this is more impactful. But that's an important step, right, for them to process that and then move on to the next step. So for those of you that have not started bringing people back, I really encourage you to have a weekly video meeting. You can't make them come, but if they want to, they're there, and you can start to discuss these issues. We have another question. Was it in chat? I'm looking for questions in Q&A. I wanted to touch on the financial aspect, which is that, as I think we've all talked about, many of our people are having unemployment and stipends, and they're making better money than they would working. And to that point of Laura's, that can also be a way that we have trouble convincing them to come back and for a less full schedule. So have any of you dealt with that specific issue? And do you have any words of wisdom for the rest of us?
I think that's when leadership at the spa really comes into play. And again, not knowing where that full of attitude is coming from, I would think a lot of it is coming from fear. And, again, maybe it's not their time to start yet. Maybe it's a time that they just take the time, because as we all know, when that one person full of attitude comes into the spa, it becomes that cancer that just grows very rapidly and impacts the team in such a negative way when all we're trying to do is exude positivity. So, that might be too, if somebody comes in and, the first day back has issue, that's that person you have to speak to every chance you get, and making sure that they are comfortable, that they are going to be a team player, and if not, it may not be the right place for them.
Mm-hmm. Are you finding that this is maybe a line of demarcation? Any of you, and for any of you attendees, I'd love to hear that in the Q&A. Are you finding like, oh, this is an opportunity to maybe make some changes that we should have made but hadn't? Like sort of drawing a line in the sand and saying, okay, maybe we're going to reassemble our team in a different way.
Yeah, from a big corporation standpoint, we wish, but no, we would not. I think we would probably litigation. I don't know, Pat, any very big corporations, I don't think we would be allowed to do that. But I'm sure if you're a private spa, this is probably a good time to make changes. But for us,
well, maybe it's just in assignment or something like that. We have a comment from Allison that they've been back for 4 weeks and still some people are trying to work the system, I guess that's humans, right? We're all different and we have different priorities, but it's a thing that as leaders, we need to be prepared to deal with as we come back, because we think, oh, we can't wait to get back, and they're not feeling that way, right, Patrick?
I will say, Lisa, that, to Suzanne's point, you can't come in and reinvent the wheel. You can't do that in California, especially. But what it has made us do, as leaders, is the change we've made is schedule refinement, so that we're really working efficiently with the schedule. And I think that's going to be where lots of people are going to be able to make an impact in terms of how they were operating previously, is that, we're not going to bring back 50 therapists for a spa right now. We're going to bring back 10. Mm-hmm. And so what does that core schedule look like for those therapists coming back, and how do we accommodate that and make it so that, to your earlier question, that they don't feel like they're making more money by staying on unemployment? We want them to come back. And if you're smart with your scheduling and how you operate your business from that perspective, I think the cost benefit for the therapist may be that it's better for those who really do want to come back. And I think this has given us a great opportunity to sort of whittle away a lot of the extraneous things that have crept into our businesses over the past decade when we've been booming in spa so much, and to really focus on what's really essential to run the business. I think that's the kind of change we're making. Sorry, Suzanne, go ahead.
No, sorry, Patrick. I also think, when we talk about bringing staff back, and I spoke to some of my teams. I went out with a couple of the employees from my previous position a long time ago when I was in operations. And, we've spoke about this quite often. When you bring back teams, do we do one shift? Do you have one shift one day, and then the next day you have a completely different shift of people? Mm-hmm. Because if you do have someone coming in, or you do have someone that is bringing in COVID, which, and they don't know about it, they don't know how to have it, you could even have 3, and I've even spoke to big spas and say, why don't you have 3 shifts? If your people are comfortable coming back, have 3 completely different shifts where they sterilize the spa every night, the new shift comes in the next day. If you do have a situation, then you're not going to have to call off everybody, because you're going to have to
quarantine
everyone.
Deploying on teams, if you will, team A, team B, and they stick together that way. Daniel, what would you like to add here?
I think that you started with asking about the financial impact that this will have. So, you know, as when the crisis started, I think every single company around the world sent messages, put messages out there on social media saying that basically the most important thing is the employees and the guests, right? So we all go from this message, and now that it's time to reopen, suddenly it's strange how the profit of a spa comes being put back into the mix, where I believe that at this point, let's face it, not a lot of our spas are going to be turning huge profit at the start. So why are we doing this? And we are doing this because we have employees that depend on us to provide work to them, and we have guests that actually need to look after their well-being and need to visit our facilities. So if we play those cards really well and we welcome our employees the way they should be, and we focus on the guests, the financials will come. But if we focus too much on, well, we're not going to give you 3 weeks to open, you're going to get 3 days, and no, you're not going to get the therapist that you want because we can only bring in 5 therapists, although your spa could take 25, because financially it's not viable, while we're missing the boat. And that's—
Well, can I say this to your point, Daniel, and to your question directly, Lisa? And John Morris just made me think of this. We started back, and I see Ray Vogler, so I'm thinking about your former spa, Ray. But we brought the team back last week, and we are in the first 2 days alone, and this has been a consistent trend. We've been getting well over 90 to 100 phone calls a day for spa services. And so if you're looking at financial impact, the demand is there. I would also say that we are preparing for large retail sales as well. So we've been reaching out to our resource partners to stock up on the retail, because we know we're going to have a pent-up demand for retail. So I think there is business there. I think we have to be smart about how we do it as well. You know, Kenneth, who works with Suzanne, and I were talking the other day, and it was like, in this particular time we're in, we do have to crawl, walk, run, and resist the urge to overstaff, overbook our facilities. It's not fair to the staff to do that, but know that there is business there. There is business there to be had when all of us reopen our doors. Maybe Allison, you saw that too when you started to reopen your spas.
I think that definitely we've heard that, Patrick, also on the hotel side, that the hotels that were open. I was on a webinar last week where the hotelier said that Memorial Day was either sold out or close to it. I mean, at 50% capacity, but still the demand is there. The demand is there. So, yes, I think bringing back people on teams, and not every day. I mean, for a smaller spa that's not a hotel spa, you don't need to open 7 days a week from the get-go. You could open for 4 over the weekend, reassess, reopen. Allison, did your properties open 7 days when you came back?
They did. We had a couple that had like one of the slower days, Tuesday or Wednesday. They chose to not to be 7 days, and it was really just a matter of getting people, well trained, comfortable. But like Patrick, I mean, the demand is incredible, and I only speak from experience. I mean, I've needed a massage, and I can't even get in to our locations. And our daughter just ran a half marathon. I said, "I'll get you in first," but it was hard to find a spot to fit her in. Great problem to have. A lot of it was capacity, right? Because they just couldn't have the capacity. That's starting to open up here, at least in Colorado, which is great news for the owners. Retail, the same thing. I mean, we've been very fortunate with our vendor partners, and just touching on this as well. If there's ways that vendors, and everyone's tied for money and resources, but even samples to send to the locations, whether it's the Montage or the Marriott or whatever spot is, or the SPAVIA locations, where just a little sample to be able to give to the team, to thank them for their support, thank them for coming back. Those little things from a vendor partnership has been really, really well received, and the team loves it. It's a little thing.
Like, yeah, we'll definitely touch on that at the end, what the vendors and the spas can do together. But it sounds like these are really good frameworks for bringing people back and getting the right people back. I mean, I know, yes, we have legal mandates in each state, but if you offer someone a position and they decline it and their unemployment goes away, then you do have a little leverage that way too. And I'm not suggesting that's the way to go, but we have to think about what's going to be the best all around, right? I've seen a few comments where people have said, yes, you know, we had to move on from someone because there was an attitude problem. And we all know that that comes out in the wash sooner than later. So I think the important thing is to think about how we can get our valued practitioners back in the best frame of mind possible so they can get back to the work that they love and that our guests love, of course. Okay, so go ahead, Allison, you have one more question?
I'm sorry, there's a question that came through about the panel seeing any benefit of opening with shorter hours. For us personally, it really depended on really how many people we could have in the spas. We've actually seen on busier days, we've had to extend our hours to accommodate a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the demand. So I think, again, you're really going to have to just play that out as, again, depending on what your mandates are and how many people you can have in the spa. Maybe Tuesday, Wednesdays, if there's a less busy days, those would be shorter hours, but then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's all hands on deck. If it means 2 hours before and 2 hours at the end of the day that you extend, that might be a business decision you have to make as well.
Okay.
We've actually, to your point, Allison, we've actually, for all of our, we've built a strategic opening plan separate and apart from the health and safety standards. And part of that is hours of the spa will really flex with the occupancy of the hotel, so that will open in a lower occupancy state with a 1 8-hour shift. And as that occupancy begins to creep up past 50% to 65%, we will extend hours past that. And then about 65%, we're close to our normal operating capacity, so we would go back to normal hours. But we've been very deliberate about the hours to give ourselves time to actually figure out the operation and where those glitches may lie, so that we're not, you know, for instance, at Ray's former spa in South Carolina, that spa can do 100 treatments a day on the weekend. There's no way we could do that right now, even if we had, and we have the demand for it, and do it well. And so for us, the mandate has been, we need to not only open our spas again, but given all of the temperature taking and the lack of amenities right now, the service level has to be off the charts. And so we can't service 100 guests in our spas right now, given the fact of where we are. We can't service them at the 5-star level that we charge and that they expect to be. So we'd rather have 40 guests who are taken the best care of, that we feel very comfortable about. And once we know how to do that really well, keep growing from there. So it's very, very intentional. And I encourage the people on the call to be very intentional about how they reopen their businesses.
Yeah, I think that's very smart, Patrick. Yeah, very smart.
It's a great point
check it out every day.
Segue to our next topic on marketing, right? So because we know there is demand, but how will we do it? And I was struck, Patrick, by your comment on pricing. I mean, we've heard this on the hotel side as well, that the hotels have no intention of discounting rate, even though they may not have all of the amenities. The pool may not be open, or the golf, or the fitness room, but they want to keep their rates solid. And I think we have to do that in the spa too. But to your point, how do we keep a rate for a service when maybe they can't use all of the amenities? So I'd like to hear from you all on some of your strategies around this issue, around pricing and what kind of offers we're going to market with.
So I can give the story of the Fairmont Scottsdale, who reopened a couple of weeks ago. They are extremely busy, as most other people who have reopened their spa. The phones are ringing off the hook. And one of the comments that the spa director said is that actually people didn't have any issue with pricing. They even run a Travel Zoo promotion before, but she thought that she should have not done it, because people are actually coming and they're booking not the 60 minutes, but the 90-minute treatment. And they're also booking the multiple treatments, and they leave buying retail. So this is, I don't know if this is just the first wave of the guests coming back that has been secluded for so long that now they're just going all out, but they may not be coming back for 2 or 3 months. So that's the part that we're not sure. But the first ones who are coming right now, they seem to have no problem with the pricing. I think everybody understands that the amenities, the services, the whatever we used to offer is not exactly there anymore. But I think that they are able to get over this and continue coming for the services that we offer. Just the fact that we do something for their health and well-being.
Daniel, you said that property was in Arizona?
Yes, Fairmont, Scottsdale, Arizona. Yeah. Great.
Well, yes, we love to hear these stories of demand, and you're right. You know, we know that we can't let the value slip. Who else has some thoughts? Suzanne, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I do. You know, we've opened our Ritz-Carlton Amelia, Ritz-Carlton Naples is about to open, and we're seeing the same as, you know, as Daniel. We're just very, very busy, very, very busy. But I agree, and I've always said, I don't think the price is an issue for our guests right now. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking to have trust. They want to be able to trust you. You know, trust is going to be a huge thing moving forward, and trust in your employees. Price is not the issue. We have heard back, you know, with the amenities being closed down. Guests are really not complaining, not within our spas so far. They're not saying anything. I'm a huge believer, and we were doing this before, obviously, COVID, in yield management. You know, so we've really been playing around with yield management. And really, over weekend, we may have our prices on Monday through Thursday, where, you know, back in the old days where we used to discount Monday through Thursday to bring people in. We're actually going the other way now, and we're actually putting our prices up on high demand areas. And we never really got any pushback on that from our guests pre-COVID. So it's been really interesting. So a weekend or a holiday, we've just been adding $10, $15 to every treatment, like a hotel does. And
15. I was wondering what the percentage was. Is it like a 5% or 10% hike?
You know, I think it really differs by each spa, but, you know, I remember years ago, we started saying, right, okay, over the period between Christmas and New Year, when it's just crazy in our hotels, we just added pretty much $10 for every treatment. Obviously, lowered it a little if it was, you know, manicure, and high, you know, if it was a 90-minute treatment, we did extend it. So I would probably say it was probably about, you know, maybe a 5 to 10% increase. And we're actually seeing really great growth on that pre-COVID. So again, I don't think it's about pricing. And instead of us positioning ourselves, as we did in 2008 after the recession hit, and spas just went out and hit every single discount they could possibly, and we positioned ourselves in that discount market. I think we really have to try to avoid that, obviously depending on what spa you have. And I advocate Travel Zoo and some of those, you know, vehicles in certain periods, like in Arizona in the summer, that they've got to do it. You know, they have to do it. It's crazy. It's so hot out there, but and they're so quiet. So really ensuring, I agree with Patrick, it's making sure your service is incredible. If you feel that you really have to do something, do an add-on. You know, we have a program called Spa Plus where we charge a guest for upgrading within treatment time. So you might add stones to a massage, or you might add a Moroccan oil, or, you know, a nice oil in the hair when you're doing the scalp massage. So do an add-on. You know, if you really feel that you really have to drive that business, offer the add-on, which is really not going to cost you any money. Stones, adding stones, heated stones in a treatment, just 2 stones on the back for maybe 10 minutes, is not really going to cost you anything. You know, so really looking at your numbers, making sure that you are really working through your numbers and go into your GM and saying, okay, this is the business case model. This is how much we do a treatment for, and this is the add-on we can do that's really not going to cost us anything. So let's go ahead and do that instead of lowering our prices. So we're actually seeing that really happening out there right now.
Well, you make a great point on the price again. I mean, many of us were around when Groupon came along and put how many spas out of business because they couldn't deliver services at those prices for long. So, but a valid question raised like by Laura, I mean, if we're not giving them locker room, hot tub, you know, all of that, then how are we making up for it?
One of the things that we've incorporated at SPAVIA is a gift of gratitude. And so when a guest comes in, they can choose from 5 different, upgrades, whether it was a CBD upgrade, 50% off a retail product. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. I don't know why, but I can't put on the spot, I guess. And it was just our way to say thank you, number one, for supporting us. I mean, we talk about those early adopters or bandwagoners. You know, these are people that are coming in a sense, taking that risk on us to see how we're doing things, their comfortability. And it was just our way to say thank you. So not necessarily a promotion per se, but just a gift of gratitude. And then we have, and the owners have the choice on lash extensions and waxing, because everyone lost their lashes. Everybody looked like a gorilla. And so I think it was just a very small way of saying we recognize, and we're just so grateful that you're here. So those are just two small promotions that we had made the decision to do, not our core services. I mean, certainly those are, you know, more, well, I guess waxing is a necessity, speaking from one that needs it. But I think that it was just, again, something small, not to take away from our core services, but and treatments, but the lash and waxing and the gift of gratitude.
So no promotional prices on our standard Swedish massage, for example. You know, why would we? But maybe some other lesser used services. That seems a good strategy to me. How about on the hotel side? I mean, we've all heard that drive-to markets are going to be the target. You know, will the hotel spas have special programs to reach out to the local guests? Patrick, why don't you go on this down?
We include a lot of spa marketing within our hotel marketing. So if you get Montage information, you're also getting spa information. We're also doing lots of messaging on social media for spa also. At this point, there's not going to be a big discounting program put into place, even if it's a local drive-to market. I think there's a desire to really hold the price integrity that we've established. And I think every company has a different, I don't think there's a right or wrong philosophy to this. I think there's just a philosophy of what your company does, but we really focus on price integrity as just a core principle of how we operate our financial businesses. Part of that's also because we also have obviously financial responsibilities to ownership groups as well that we have to be cognizant of as we're deciding whether to discount or not to discount. And there hasn't been, from the phone calls that I'm seeing in South Carolina, there has not been a demand for discounted prices. There's been a demand for access and a demand for clarity on what is being done to keep the spa safe and clean and to keep the guests coming in safe and clean. But there hasn't been a big, how much am I going to get off for this service because there's no steam room? I think price integrity is key. And then if that becomes a question, then I think it's up to the spa director and the GM or the spa director or the owner to make the appropriate decision. But to come out of the gate just discounting things, I think if we do that, we're gonna be in the discounting game from here on out for many years to come.
Which is a game we don't want to play in. We know that.
Well, it's a very destructive game, I think.
Yeah. Well, we call it, it's that spiral to nothing, right? You race to the bottom and we have nothing. I think that we're going to find that guests are pretty understanding right now, right? They're so happy to come back. And what I'm hearing in the places that are open is that, you can really try things. People are more forgiving, but I'm wondering what will be the case in, say, September, right?
That's the question.
How this plays out. And I don't know that any of us know that. Daniel, what do you have to add here? What about your marketing to your drive-to markets?
We have some of our spas that really are where the main clients are actually local guests. So if we think about the Fairmont Pacific Rim in Vancouver, for example, it's a 9-treatment room spa that 85% of the business come from local Vancouver guests. So we do have plans in place to bring them back. We do have the database to email them directly with information about what we've been doing in order to welcome them back safely, that we would like to see them again. We have a loyalty program in place that we works with a point system that we're probably going to look at expanding. So I think that we are going to focus on capturing those local guests that can actually come multiple times over the next few months, while the hotel is most likely going to be at 20 to 30% occupancy, right? So what can you do to encourage a guest to come back once they leave for a first treatment? Is there an incentive to come back for another treatment within that following month? Or is there some sort of a buy 10, get one free kind of situation where you encourage them to come for a multiple series of treatments, and then they would actually, and also the other one is to bring friends, right? So what can we do to encourage them to come back with some friends, so then you multiply the number of guests who are actually coming to your spa? That doesn't always work for resort hotel. We have other hotels like in Mexico, in Riviera Maya, where there's actually nobody outside of the hotel that comes to the spa. So that becomes another issue, because then you need to really focus on the guests that are staying at the hotel. And with 20% occupancy, it becomes a little bit tricky to fill up a spa with 21 rooms, right? So that's
a little bit.
Yeah.
But you can give them a lot of attention when they do come.
That's right.
So to my second point on the slide, I mean, is there a way that with vendors we can work on promotions that are around immunity? We know that people with healthy immune systems have had many less issues in this current situation. I mean, do any of you have plans to change your menus or tweak your menus?
Yeah, I'll take that one. I think, it's going to depend on the market, for us. But we are trying to look at immunity boosting. I think there's a big opportunity for seminars for wellness. So I look at JW Marco Island, who does a really incredible job on really selling a lot of wellness seminars to the group guests. And we're not sure when our group guests will come back, because I think that's going to be the challenging segment. But really adding seminars where you will have a group in a room or even virtually, like you're doing yourselves, and really talking to them how you can boost their immune system, what treatments can you do, and really utilizing your therapists. There's always great therapists in your team that have such great knowledge and can be good in a seminar setting. I think we've been looking at some treatments where the guests can really, like a mud bath. We're calling it like a mud bath or a mud sling or something, where you're creating a salt scrub table. We know there's been salt scrub tables around for ages. Adding mud, can the guests go? Can you have an attendant assist them making a scrub and a mud up, and they take it in the sauna? And I know saunas and steamers are places we're avoiding right now. However, I think so much science tells us so far that actually probably sauna is probably a safer place to be in than, because the humidity and the heat, than any other area. So it's really communicating that and educating our guests. So can we create treatments where the guests can actually scrub themselves, they can apply the mud themselves, they can go in the sauna, they can come out. Yes, it's a lot, it's messy, we've got to clear up, but it could be a really great source of revenue, as we don't look at them and you don't have to use a therapist to do it. So there's sort of some of the ideas we're looking at.
Well, Suzanne, I think you hit on a key component, and I'm wondering what spas are thinking about going forward in terms of the mix of us, let's say, taking a 21-room spa that's had 21 therapists in each room, and maybe do we take 3 or 4 rooms and dedicate them to something that doesn't require a therapist? What are your thoughts on that? And I'd like to hear in the chat as well, in the Q&A, if you attendees are thinking that way too. But in the short term, I think we need to really keep our pricing steady, but find ways to encourage people to come back. And Daniel, to your point, second and third visit, bring a friend. It's not just that one visit we're after. The spa has to play that role again, for us, and how will we make that happen? Allison, I'd like to hear from you on this. What are you doing in the 20-some cities that you're open in?
So I wanted to touch first on the immunity piece. For myself and our spa boutiques, we've been focusing, really pulling out what we have that's very immunity driven, so that there's sort of a retail section. If somebody sees it, they know it's immunity related. So we can have a nice variety of different things. And, we all in our spa boutiques have already, products that we can use. There's a few vendors that have come out with some new offerings, which has been great for us with Immunity. We've also implemented, when we kind of talk about marketing and what we're doing, is a virtual facial. In a lot of our states, they still can't do facials. And it was great. I know spoke to one of the vendors today on one of my calls and talking about the facial shield. I can't wait to look at that. But more importantly is, how do we continue to look for ways that can still engage our guests and do something fun? And so we just launched our virtual, we call it Sparties, facial, really a facial party. And we had, I think there were just 2 or 3 in the very first one, and had $500 in retail sale. And I think we have to look outside of the box, because if we have peaks and we start seeing certain things that cause us to shut down certain segments of the business, we have to continue to think out of the box. And so that's just one. We've been testing it, and so far with the few locations that have actually done them, the retail sales are strong and the engagement has been really fun, and the estheticians are enjoying doing them. So happy to talk one off if anybody's interested.
Okay, that's good to hear. I mean, we have heard that retail demand, which I find interesting, because many retail has been available online or through other channels, but the guests have really wanted it. And I think that speaks to our power at moving retail and connecting with the guest on a deeper level. So that's good news for all of us.
You know, and I was going to say one last thing. I was noticing the chat page, you know, we've partnered with Hyperice, and we're super excited to really, you know, work on these types of treatments that not so much contact, you know, the contactless treatment, which is so odd that we're even saying that we're in such a connection or a contact business. But I think that we have to continue to look for just small segments to create that experience for people that really are going to be the last ones to come on board, and, you know, love partnering with companies that can offer some differences.
Yeah, and I just want to jump on that, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead, Suzanne.
You know, as we look at the chat bar, you know, I think at this moment in time, working with our suppliers is going to be critical. You know, and so we're looking at adding some Hyperice. You know, we're looking at adding some Hyperice treatment. They do amazing with us already. And I have to tell you, Wednesday evening, I have about 150 spa leaders, and most of them are on furlough. And Montage himself will be taking us all through a facial on Zoom. And we have another spa company that is sending a drink that we've put together and adding some collagen to our drink. So I think that may become part of a norm. You know, of course, it's Montage, so who cannot be more entertaining than Montage? I want
to be a part of that.
You get the double whammy, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that may become, you know, that may become part of a norm as well as we move forward.
Yeah.
I do think it's important to say this, and I will say this about when this all first started happening, and I'm saying this to our wonderful resource partners and vendors who are on the line and on this call. I got very nervous in the beginning, because I was getting emails and messaging from vendors saying, you're going to have to replace all your treatment beds, buy my $5,000 water chamber, my $10,000 bed that's contactless, things like that. And the reality of it is, the type of things that Paige is doing, that Ziba is talking about, that Boldiger is talking about, no one has the capital expense to go out and replace all their tables with water beds or with whatever the new technology is. So I think the vendors who figure out how to make these impacts that are really meaningful, and Paige and I are going over Norman Tech tomorrow. Thank you. We love Hyperice, but you know, we're not going to have the capital expense to go out and knock down walls and build new spas, and that's just not going to happen in this environment. So I got very nervous when I saw that first coming out, but now it seems to have calmed down, and we're getting much more reasonable solutions to the problem. But that was I'm glad to see that a lot of vendors have right-sized their approach to this situation we're all facing.
Well, that's a great segue to this closing point. I mean, how can we, vendors and spas, work together? What can the spas do for the vendors? I'd like to hear from some of you in the chat or the Q&A, what you'd like to see. And the spas, Allison mentioned the sampling, that's helped. What are some other things that the spas could use help with?
We're working with our skincare vendors on hand sanitizers because we don't want to put Purell or whatever in our spas and at the desks. And so our skincare vendors have been great about doing that. That's been a big piece for us.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes, I think that anything that they can help us with that extend the experience of the guests when they leave the spa. So whether it's helping us with some promotion or gift with treatments or some incentive also for the therapist. So I think that would be great. You know, they often have incentives for therapists, but I think that at this point with the 50% occupancy of the spa, the therapists are not going to be able to reach the minimum threshold in order to get the incentive. So I think that this may need to be reviewed to encourage again the retailing of after each treatment. But you know, sleep is very important. Stress management is important. So what products do they have that can help the guests when they go back home to think about us, to think about this company, but also to manage their stress and their sleep, hopefully. So those, I think, something that we could use help from the vendors would be great.
Sleep products for sure. I mean, such a demand even pre-COVID for that.
Yeah.
That's a great area. What else? Allison, what are you looking for from vendors?
Wow, our vendors have been phenomenal. I know when this all first started, vendors were reaching out to me, I was reaching out to vendors, and really just being creative in terms of how we can generate revenue, special promo codes to order online. I mean, it's a lot of work on their end. So to have that type of support, I know we did a special Facebook event with Hyperice, you know, just however we could engage to make a difference in someone's life at home, and that will continue. So I think just continuing to find ways to support our team, support our guests, think out of the box in terms of what we're doing for protocols, amenities, you know, how do we now present some of our amenities in our spas? You know, again, being even creative with that. I think it was Crystal, so I have to keep putting my darn glasses on.
That's all right.
I think that was it Crystal? Somebody, Crystal, that said custom locker room amenities. I'd love to hear what those kits are like. You know, again, how do you partner with different vendors, or is it one vendor to create, you know, just really nice amenities when we can't offer certain amenities to make that difference and have that exceptional experience for our guests. So.
Okay, great. Suzanne, I'm sure you have something to add here.
Yeah, really not. You know, I've been, like Allison said, I'm being completely amazed and heartwarmed by the outreach of our partners during this time, even on a very personal level, even when they know we're all on furlough and they couldn't make orders. We are such a tight family, and I felt that more than ever as we are going through this. And I love all our suppliers. They're just such good hearts, you know. And I think as we move forward, they're also extremely smart. You know, they are quite often have to do things in their own business. They're great business people. So I really think partnering with them and collaborating with them and how we can really drive business. I think probably taking away one part that I'm really going to focus on, I was trying to focus on before we got furloughed, was the retail affiliation. So how do we really move forward? Instead of us holding the inventory in the spas, we allow our partners, our supply partners, to hold the inventory. And then when our guests leave, there's a co-connect. And we know that we have some vendors out there already doing that, but how do we really build them programs out so they're much more consistent? So our guests can go and order that product instead of ordering when they get home, and that spa doesn't get any, repeat money after. We make a really big collaboration. We create a retail affiliation, and our spas continue to get money. Because I think as we look through this time, and I have a lot of vendor friends, and they probably wouldn't have survived without their online retail. There's a lot of companies out there wouldn't
Very
survive,
much
and actually some have done really well with online retail. So how do we collaborate as spas and work with our supplier vendors and our partners to continue that at home? So our guest has a repeat buyer program, and money goes back to the spa, or it goes back to the host, to the hospitality, the corporation. So I think that's definitely an area we're going to focus on when we start getting back into it.
Well, I think there are many things that happened in this pandemic that are going to become habits, and that may be one. That worked very well, having drop shipping from a vendor, and it frees up inventory cash and shelf space for the spa. And, as long as the client gets it quickly, it seems like a great solution. We're seeing more in the chat, and we'll save that for you as well. Patrick or Daniel, has either of you weighed in on this? What you'd like from your vendors?
Go, Daniel.
I think I did wait, but to echo Suzanne, I mean, they are so great. I mean, they reach out to you when this hit, and many of them have been calling me to speak with me on a weekly basis and just see how we're doing, knowing that basically everything is shut down and we just didn't know what was going to happen, right? So it's about the connection that we've built over the years, and it's the same that goes with our team. So for those of us who work at corporate office, one of the issue we have is we are actually disconnected from our team in the hotels, and now that it doesn't look like we're going to be traveling anytime soon to actually go physically onto the properties to help them. This connection and this personal phone call that we do make on a regular basis, that's what makes a difference at the end.
Very much so. Patrick, did you weigh in on this as well?
Yeah, I look at something like what Jessica did for the industry with the table covers. Just that whole campaign around that was really great, and it's like, oh, we need just like those types of things that are beyond just. That was great for the industry. Sure, it was great for Oakworks, but I think that was like those types of actions that have been replicated throughout. I've been on fantastic calls with Comfort Zone. I've been on just fantastic. There's been a true opening up of the industry in a way that I think is really positive, and I hope it stays that way, that we're all in it together. I don't carry Sotis, but I'm seeing great things from Sotis on the chat. I'm like, oh, I think anything that we can do to help each other, even if it's not a direct sale, I think is the right thing to do from a human standpoint. And I think I've witnessed that from a lot of the vendors and retail partners that are on this chat and not on this chat as well. And that's what the business is about. And so I've really appreciated that.
Oh, that's always been the case, right? I mean, we're a small industry, really. We know each other. We go from one company to another. So if it isn't a sale now, it could be a sale down the road, because it is very relationship driven. That's the point. I mean, that's the point of these meetings, right? Getting to know people and how we can help each other. We each need each other, right? One can't survive without the other. And the guests need both of us. So any closing comments from any of you that you'd like to give a little last word of wisdom to our attendees? Anybody?
I'll go first.
I would just say
go ahead, Allison.
No, Patrick, go ahead. You go first.
And I was just going to say one thing that I think is going to be really important, particularly for the spa directors who are on the call, is to really to be very consistent in our approach to what we're doing. I think if we're up and down and all around, it's gonna feed to our employees, and that feeds directly to the guests. And I think it's really important to have very formalized ways, particularly because our staff sizes are smaller right now. I would have very formalized ways of getting direct feedback from people. One-on-ones are a great way to do that, and that helps people feel like they're being heard. And if you can action what people are saying to you from their real lived experiences in the treatment rooms, I think it only accrues to your benefit.
Good. Great. And Allison, you want to jump in now?
No, we're all in this together. I think that listening is going to be one of our greatest assets right now, listening to what our teams are saying, what our guests are saying, communicating with one another if you're hearing something really off. You know, again, the role playing and continuing as a team to excel, to create that exceptional experience for your guests is paramount. But at the end of the day, having forums like this where we can share ideas and have that camaraderie to really help all of us excel, you know, we're in it together. And I'm happy to meet or talk to anybody if you ever just like, God, Allison, I'm having a really crappy day, and lift you up and have a really nice conversation, because at the end of the day, we're taking care of our team. Somebody's got to take care of us as well. So, and thank you for having me. It was great.
Oh, it was great to have you, all of you. You've been wonderful. We have about, I want attendees to know you don't need to jump off. You will have a break until your next meeting, and I have one more poll for you. But do I have any more thoughts in closing, Suzanne or Daniel?
Sure, I can go. Oh, go ahead, Suzanne.
No, go ahead, Daniel, please. I always talk too much, so please.
Right. I think this is the time as the leaders of the industry that it's time to lead with compassion. And I think that if you were one of those spa directors that forgot that you are in a human business and you ended up leading your spa from a closed office where you focus mostly on financial, it's not too late for you to refocus and pivot, as we've heard so many times in this crisis, and really go out and lead your team from the spa. This is the time for you to build a relationship with your team and really show that you are the person that they should look up to, that you're going to take them to that storm and they're going to come stronger on the other end. But this is crucial that you change your mindset and really reconnect, because it's so easy to really go back into an office and just focus on some other things that right now is not the priority. So your team and your guests are your priority. The rest will follow.
Great, well said. And Suzanne, you can give your thoughts now.
Yeah, I sort of piggyback on everyone else. You know, it all starts with your people. You know, and I hear Bill Marriott still say that today. You know, it all starts with your people. And if your people you listen to your people, you lead with your heart. You have to lead with your, you know, in this industry, you have to lead with your brain and your heart. We call it the balanced scorecard. You have to have a combination. But if you really care for your people, even the challenging ones, if you really care for them, they will take care of your guests, and your guests will take care of the owners. You know, so I think it really starts with your people.
Yeah.
Well, people is it on both sides. So thank you again for your participation. I'm going to post one more poll, which I'm going to put up right now. And this applies to both vendors and spas. I'd like to hear how long you expect to see COVID-related impacts to your business. And you have 4 options through Q3 of this year, through Q4 of this year, into next year, or forever. You know, what do we think? While that poll is happening, again, let me thank my panelists so much. They gave a lot of time. They had phone calls with me. It's hours today. So thank you to you for all the wisdom that you share with our industry, as always. For attendees of meetings, your next meeting is at 3:25. And since you're home, we know that you won't have a bathroom queue. So hopefully you can get back in time to start your meeting on time. It's been a privilege to be on the panel and as a moderator, and I love hearing from everyone. Thank you all for your comments and questions. It's all about dialogue as we move forward and we figure out how to emerge. I have no doubt that we will. We're a strong industry. And there's power in us speaking like this. So let's keep the conversation going. Thank you to everyone and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.